Oh man, don't you just love a cliffhanger? Welcome back to the We Burn Blue podcast, episode 13, part 2. In terms of the midfield, I don't think we're expecting much change, right? Just considering that in my opinion, I would say that this is the strongest area of our 11.
Yeah, the only big change is, of course, going to be Santos coming in to strengthen it, and I think that's basically what's going to happen. It's going to be a much stronger unit. I think the only player I have a question over, in terms of their future is, and that's from the players currently at the club, would be Drewsbury Hall. The likes of Chukwemeka, who's already out on loan, I don't think he comes back. I know you like him a lot, but I don't see that happening. Honestly, it's only whether Drewsbury Hall sticks around. And I think while he wasn't looking very good at the start, and especially in that bad run of form, he had a pretty solid, end to the season where he was coming on and he was looking all right. He was getting into good positions. He got an assist in the final as well. So I think, yeah, that's the only major doubt for me. What are your thoughts on the midfield?
Yeah, like I said, strongest area of the pitch. I have to tip my hat to Enzo Fernandez. He definitely should have been in the discussion, at least for Player of the Year, same as Cucurella. Caicedo is definitely the right choice for sure, but those would probably be my top three. Yeah, so Enzo kind of leading the way in this kind of central midfield spot in a more attacking sense. Caicedo is basically the first name on your team sheet. I think we've finally found a way to pair these guys up together. But we also have to point out that I think Fernandez's mentality just something changed. I don't want to associate it with his divorce, but I feel like that his attitude has totally done a 180. And now we're seeing, the potential that we bought. In terms of Lavia, I do have questions over how long we run this experiment for, but I can see why we're running the experiment because we do just look like a much more composed side on the ball when he's on the pitch. And he's not, he does put himself about, so he belongs in that sort of central midfield holding role. And it is like an extra set of legs that could rest Caicedo if needs be. So yeah, again, very much congratulations to Caicedo and Fernandez for finally figuring their shit out in the center of the park. And I guess some credit has to go to Maresca for that. Lavia, I'm quite happy about this season overall. Very weird for a pessimist to say that, but basically it's because I think his injury issues um, were so severe that this is the kind of season we should expect. It may carry on into next season, but he will hopefully be, improving in increments in terms of his fitness. I feel like we're lucky in the sense that his raw technical ability and his mental like capacity is already at such a decent level that he can play in a Premier League game with a lack of fitness. I think a couple of other points. Santos coming in again, great set of legs. The midfield is basically an engine room in this system. It's an engine room with a bit of everything else, like a little bit of guile, a little bit of technical ability, and I think he adds kind of those trademarks to the game. One area which we're lacking is height. I've said this maybe like halfway through the season as well. We really do not look effective from set pieces, and I think that's because our midfield particularly is quite short. You can expect your kind of attacking midfielders to be more agile and lower center of gravity, and that generally means shorter players. But somebody like a Leslie Ugochukwu would not go amiss, like if if we kind of said, okay, fine, we're going to actually have a little bit of a bloated midfield, but just to make sure we have optionality, I wouldn't be averse to that because I think, Ugochukwu and Santos could still get 15 games or 15 to 20 games in the next season, and that would still mean them learning and being at the club.
Yeah, you mentioned Ugochukwu is another one. I forgot he's out. And then there's also the small matter of we confirmed the signing of Isugo as well, who is likely to deputize for Caicedo from what I understand of his profiling. But height is a good point, and I think yeah, the general profile is they're mostly under 6 foot. I think it's only I think yeah, Caicedo is about just under 6 foot. Maybe Ugochukwu seems to be a taller guy, and Isugo is also a tall fellow apparently. But considering that, we do have Isugo coming in now, and Ugochukwu's out on loan as well. He's going to have to be integrated. There might be some more outgoings there, and I think if we look at a settled unit of Caicedo, Enzo, Lavia, these three for sure. Santos getting integrated. That's four solid options you have, and you have again if we choose to keep Isugo, we send him out on loan. Amugo will definitely go on loan as well. It's for me, then it comes down to between Ugochukwu and Drewsbury Hall. If we keep one of these like guys and have the other players, like you said, it is looking like the strongest and the most settled part of our squad right now. And barring something crazy happening, like Madrid actually coming in for Fernandez, which is something we alluded to last time that there were these rumors. I think the midfield should be pretty solid for years to come. And on Enzo Fernandez, of course, you mentioned his turnaround. I think he was on Argentinian TV saying he hired a performance coach to help him with that. So you could see that, like I think when collectively the team turned a patch after that dreadful run in the middle, and you could also see that as that happened, whether it was down to the individuals or it was like a collective thing where the team turned around and these guys happened, you could see that sort of change in his demeanor. So that was good to see. Yeah. Coming to the our forward line, then let's if we had to just look at the wingers. So obviously Sancho not sticking around. How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I mean, I've gone back and forth with you about this essentially for the last few weeks because the media has, they always do their part in reminding us about the not so nice things going on at Chelsea and the fact that we have to pay £5 million to send a loanee back to their original club. But I think I was kind of like we win either way. So in this way, we open up a slot for either more investment or somebody to give me some clarity on Mudryk. You know what I mean? So had we kept him, I was like, you know what? He's a fantastic impact sub to bring on. He's played at all levels of the game now, and yeah, he's reached the final of the Champions League with Dortmund. So there's pedigree there. And maybe he doesn't have the drive to do like to kind of do a whole 90-minute top level performance where he's roasting a defender constantly. And you may have seen him do that once or twice in the past, but we can all agree it's not consistent enough, right? But he's still good value on your books at £25 million. And he's still a great footballer and somebody else who can take the pressure off of Palmer in terms of his creativity and his technique, But look, like I said, if we kept him, those would be the upsides. If, now that we're sending him back, let's hope we use this open slot correctly. I mean, I don't know if we know anything about Mudryk's B sample yet, and I don't think Sterling is going to be sticking around. So it basically means that we're looking for a right-footed left winger, right?
Yes, that is what we're looking for. And the biggest name that I mean, there are a lot of options there, right? So I think with the most concrete name we're linked with is obviously Jamie Gittins from Dortmund. But there are a lot of players who fit that profile and who would be, who could be good additions. It's just about who we actually end up with. There's also Liao, who I think we talked about in one of our opening pods of the season where he was being linked at that time. but of course, I think Milan are not in a space where I think they're considering to sell him. And then there's the likes of Rodrigo at Madrid seems a little unsettled. Nico Williams, again, a pretty high profile player, but I think the wages are just going to make that deal impossible. The Garnacho rumors just won't seem to die as much as I'm willing them to die and be buried and never surface again. And of course, then one more player who I fancy, I think would be a great shout, but I don't think there's a deal to be had unless, something crazy happens. Barcola from PSG. So that's the sort of universe. I think Gittins is probably most likely to happen. And based on what I've seen and, a little bit of research I did, he's a good carrier of the ball. He's kind of just like a right-footed Madueke. He tends to take a lot of shots, similar to how Madueke does. His shots are probably a little bit more accurate, I guess. He has better shot accuracy, I guess, but cuts in from the left wing onto his right foot, takes a shot, hasn't scored that many goals, but very good numbers when it comes to progressing the ball. So that's like the profile we're looking at. Have you done
So
any
I mean, yeah,
research?
that's like an overview of the targets, right? But in terms of the way we played on that left-hand side or the way we used that left wing this season, I just didn't think we were very effective in general. I think we were quite blunt. Um, Whenever we looked more threatening on the left was when we had a runner moving into the channels and running in behind the defense to help the left winger. But it always felt like we had a bias to playing on the right hand side. Obviously, that's because we want Palmer in the right half space, and then he tends to get the ball more than everybody else, which makes sense on in theory, right? But in reality, it does make us way more predictable. And I feel like it's a question of then bringing in somebody with close to the same amount of talent as Cole Palmer, so that firstly, we feel confident enough to use the left wing as an actual threat, right? As an actual weapon. Um, and then trusting that player to execute and creating that kind of instability in an opposition's defense so that they feel that they have to go and play like man mark this guy for a change as opposed to Cole Palmer, right? So it's a bit of a weird situation because like you said there's a lot of talent out there that we can go and get, but if Cole Palmer's playing right in our first 11 and he's not playing in the left half space, is the ball really going to go to the left hand side for 50% of the time or 33% of the time? I actually don't know. I don't think so. I think we always prioritize where Cole Palmer is on the pitch. And that honestly, for me, that blunts our attack overall because it makes us very predictable. So I think there's also like just again talking from a performance review point of view, this is probably a glaring area of weakness that Maresca needs to resolve before the start of next season because um, it's again it's just making us very very easy to figure out when we send the ball to the left. It's too telegraphed, and most of the time anyway, we're not using that left hand side as a weapon.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you make some very good points on the playing style. So, in that respect, then are there any players that you would like to see us target?
Yes, and I'm so glad you asked me that question. I've been waiting to say this. I really fancy Nicholas Jackson as a left winger. Like I really think he can do it because he's he loves to dribble with the ball. Like he is a great ball carrier and he also you can see that's what he wants to do. He likes to come deep to the center circle and kind of use his body and his very good close control and turn defenders and suddenly we look extremely threatening. I actually think we don't have to go out and splash the cash. Obviously, this depends on Mudrik's situation, but I think you have a ready-made left winger in your squad, and then it opens up. the chance to bring in a more clinical finishing striker. What do you think of that?
Well, I mean, considering that we're basically at this point just waiting for a confirmation of the Delap signing, and we're still being linked with one more striker in the likes of Ekitike. I think if we're gonna have to keep Jackson around and integrate him, that might be the best way to do so. Playing him at that left wing position, and I mean, yeah, I think he did even feature in that position at some point during the season. So maybe there is some merit in that. Could be like Salomon Kalu regen for all we know. But it's an interesting one because, like you said, left wing is definitely an area we need to solve. So if we had Delap, who is gonna play up front, and maybe um Ekitike, I think actually there was something about the club saying maybe they see Delap and Jackson playing, the forward position, and another forward coming in and supplementing from the left. Maybe they're seeing the likes of Ekitike again. I keep saying his name because he's the one we're apparently in talks with and very close to. Maybe him playing off the left. I don't know, but you may have something in there where we're seeing Jackson on the left. And then if that is the case and Jackson is playing on the left and Delap is done, who would you see us bring in? Is Ekitike the right person for you, or is there someone else? Because the forward line, I think overall from a season perspective, Jackson started strong, obviously went through a slump after his injury, and Gu, we didn't really get a chance to see him other than the Conference League because he also had an injury. But I think Jackson probably finishes the season stronger has he had he not been injured. But then again, the Conference League final was just, I think, the perfect example of Jackson's season. He scores a goal, redemption arc almost complete. He has a chance for a second moments later, and he fluffs it up because he just can't control the ball. So, yeah, two questions there. Who do you think is the right person? And yeah, what was your overall assessment of the forward season?
I mean, asking me who do we bring in, I'm probably not the right person to ask. I just try to look at it from different perspectives because I'm not doing the research as to who are the best finishers or who are the best, kind of attacking movers or who's the best in terms of playing with their back to goal. Like there are stats for all of this stuff, and I know for a fact that like we do have that sort of data set up um, in our armory in terms of our scouting. I just try to see it from different perspectives. So, firstly, if I'm Nicholas Jackson, I'm like, wait, so I mean, I now have to kind of compete with Delap, even though like I've kind of slowly like, made a name for myself, blah 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 blah. I guess that would also um, kind of be a negative in terms of my suggestion of putting him out onto the left wing. Because again, he'd be like, well, after 2 seasons, you guys are now shifting me out to the left. What the hell is this kind of thing, you know? But again, I'm not sure if he's one to have that kind of ego. I just think like, okay, that is a thought that he could have. Um, and I don't think he would stand for it if you brought in another striker. So again, I really wonder where we land up because we have Armando Broja coming back. Are we basically saying that we're not even taking him seriously as a striker anymore? And if that's the case, that's why we're bringing in Ekitike or somebody like that as like a backup striker. Again, Jackson would be like, what the hell is going on? So just when it comes to Jackson's season as a whole, right? Um, I'm not sure if he's actually improved too much because he was hot for a while, then he was cold. So then this is just more of the inconsistency that he showed in kind of his first season, right? And the truth is, I don't see him as a finisher. I actually don't see him as a striker. he doesn't have that ruthlessness in front of goal. He wants to. You can see that he wants to be like the killer, but he just doesn't have that execution. And I don't think we should view him as a striker anymore. I think at Villarreal they saw him as a winger as well, and I think this is the reason why. Um, the only question surrounds like Delap Ekitike is and any other strikers were listed kind of rumored to be in with, right? Is are they better finishers than Jackson? Because I feel like that's where we're lacking, those few extra goals that are gonna get a few extra points for us, and it adds up at the end of the season. So yeah, I'm sure, the scouting team are definitely doing the research in terms of the correct targets, right? I'm just looking at what we currently have in the squad and thinking that, look, I don't think Jackson is actually being played in the right position, and we need a better striker. Doesn't matter who it is, they just need to be better. Easier said than done, of course. I think the to your second question, um, we've basically talked about left wing and striker, so that all that remains is the right wing. And I think out of the three positions, I think that's been our most kind of devastating area of the pitch. Like we actually do a bit more damage on that right wing. And it's interesting because I do think both Neto and Madueke, who are our best wingers right now, I think they're both better on that right wing. I actually I didn't really want to kind of admit this because I always kind of liked having them both on the pitch, but the truth is they're both okay on the left wing. They do the job, but we've seen enough of that this season. We need to turn our left wing around and into a potent attack. So I think Neto and Madueke should just battle it out next season for who's going to be our first choice winger. I think that's a healthy level of competition, and it's a very good level of quality as well. And it's all the more surprising as a result, right? When I hear that we're potentially listening to offers for Madueke as well.
That was going to be my next question. Would you sell him? I'm taking that's a no.
You know, and bring in who would be my response to the idiots who run this club. I'm sorry, it's late here, and I'm just like, when it comes to transfers, if I'm not in control, or if like somebody who we think is sane is not in control, it feels like anything can happen. And somebody like a Madueke, right, who okay, for all his flaws, I still think he's improved. I still think his attitude has changed. I think he's become a little bit more professional. I've been overall impressed with his work rate off the ball defensively. So it's just in attack, um, you know, sometimes he's a bit blunt and he's a very selfish, but at least he is threatening. At least he puts defenders on the back foot. So you got to think to yourself, like, okay, surely that's his next area of improvement. As he plays more, he's going to make better decisions and better decisions for the team. And while we have the ball. So I just think like sell him and bring in who? Because if it's not going to work with Madueke, who's clearly probably your most threatening winger right now, um, like who is it going to work out for? Like in the end.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, you could say that there's room to then integrate the likes of Tyreek George more fully, not send him out on loan, keep him around, have Neto starting. And obviously then, you're the likes of if Gittins were to come in on the left, he'd be doing what Madueke is doing on the right, he'd be doing that on the left because very similar profile in terms of, the threat and the shots and the carrying. But it's all very like you said, with the transfers, we're not the people in the room
Yeah, I
and
mean, dude, if I can just jump in, right? A bird in the hand, right? You know that saying.
yeah.
So it would be pretty stupid of us to sell somebody who's our potentially our best winger right now. I think he's better than Neto right now for sure. Um, it would be pretty dumb for us to sell him without anybody else to kind of make up for the loss in threat, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think Neto is a completely different winger, and we have to kind of change the way we play when Neto is on the right wing, right? Because I think he's slightly less direct. He likes to come
Mm.
in onto his left a lot more and cross the ball. Again, these could all be things that Maresca's asking Neto to do, right? But at the end of the day, it would make no sense for us to sell somebody who's in our top two wingers and have like nothing to replace him with.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, right now we haven't really been linked with anyone on the right wing. I think left wing is a priority, and considering there was a statement put out that, we're gonna try and make a statement signing, I was expecting us to maybe go for Nico Williams, but I think yeah, the wages are too high. So looks like Gittins it'll be, unless something changes. Um, but that's all
You
the
know,
playing
I
units.
had another thought. I had another thought process on
Go
this,
for it.
right? For
Hmm.
the people who are saying that, oh, like all of these guys can go, Sancho can go, we don't really need Mudryk back, or like Sterling can go. Fine, we're listening to offers for Madueke, whatever it is. The people who are currently lined up to replace them are like Cuenda, Estevao, maybe Paez, right? They are, I guarantee you they're going to be worse. And are Chelsea fans going to put up with that on the flip side? I don't think so. So th this is my thing, right? We spent so long, I say so long, we spent a few seasons building Madueke up, right? To sell him now, to move him on now, and then bank our hopes on a Estevao who's going to come in to his first season in the English Premier League, right? At 17 or 18. It's basically nonsensical, you know? The guys that we would be replacing a Madueke or a Sancho with, right, are even younger and even more inexperienced. So I really don't see the sense in our winger decisions right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Estevao definitely going to be in, but yeah, he's coming from Palmeiras. He's you watch him play. I mean, you watch his highlight reels, and it's just goals and goals and goals. But yeah, in the Premier League, is he going to get that kind of time and space? Is he going to be able to do it versus that level of the quality of opposition? It would be very silly to bank it all on him coming and being able to replicate that. I think yeah, you could probably argue that given where we are with the squad, left wing is the area we need to invest in. Keep the right wing as it is. Keep Madueke there. Obviously, give him one more season, and then have this conversation next season if he hasn't had a good season or however it goes. We see how Estevao is as well. One season in Paez, I think, doesn't really feature in this conversation. He's probably more likely to go on loan to Strasbourg as things stand, but it's going to be interesting. And I think we always say this, we always end our conversations about what could happen with, and it's going to be interesting. And I think that's just the only way to sort of assess these things. But playing units aside, we've obviously discussed that. What is your view overall? What is your view on how Maresca handled the season overall, right? So obviously, over the course of the podcast, we have at various points raised various tactical questions and questions about the way he manages his team, his approach, his stubbornness. How do you rate his season overall? What are your views on Maresca?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a number to put to it, but what I will say, and I think I alluded to this earlier, was at least we saw progression with Maresca as a manager because there were clear moments that he was learning. And fine, it took him a while to make changes where they needed to happen. Firstly, at least they did happen. Secondly, you can't blame a manager for persisting with something because the players also take time in learning a system, right? Now, they learn a system and as they're learning, you're kind of training them and making minor changes here and there so that, they're adapting to it. Once they adapt to it, that's when you get a real indication of how they're going to execute. Once we saw that, we saw the drop off in form. But maybe Maresca said to himself that, look, I have to give this a run of 10 games to actually get concrete data and feedback, empirically or otherwise, right? That, okay, this is really not working and it's actually just making us look even weaker and it's exposing our weaknesses as opposed to hiding them. So I actually can't discredit him too much for that kind of what felt like a long period of poor form, but actually when we did that pod recapping that poor period of poor form, um, we actually said that we still took a fair few points more than what we thought we did. So yeah, I just want to say overall kudos to Maresca for going through a lot of shtick from the media, from the fans, a lot of drama, right? And he used it to his advantage. He created this kind of the old Chelsea atmosphere of it's us against the world, everybody bloody hates us, so we're going to stick together and fight it out. I think he really used the atmosphere that we as fans did contribute to, right? To his advantage. And I think overall we saw him learn a lot of lessons and we've seen him act on those learnings as well and implement new things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think that's you've hit it on the head, right? Like we talked about this. I remember going back to the first pod because I gave it a listen again, right? Like we said that this is a guy who the perception is he's very stubborn. He's actually said this at Leicester, where if you don't like my playing style, then don't come to matches, when fans were protesting. And there were aspects of that all through the season, but um there were obviously, times where he sounded like he wasn't the right guy when he said, oh, Champions League wasn't our objective, and this was not something we were expecting in the first season, and that's probably in line with what you were saying earlier about, the expectation, right? So having been through all of that, and y- you pointed it out already, the switching to a low block, something not he's not really a fan of, and oh, I wouldn't say he's not a fan of, he doesn't usually do. Doing that and get grinding out the wins, and in the process, yes, winning over fans for sure. I mean, him in the last presser of the season or whatever, when he said how you say it in English, F off. I think that was a huge moment of like endearment for with the fans, because that's the sort of thing you want to see, right? Like we've not had a manager, who's been so brash and so outspoken, and it's not even that outspoken, but we just haven't had that in so long that Maresca doing this, it showcased, growth. And I think there are definitely things that we can discuss about his approach and go into the finer details, right? Like, um, do you think he did enough to improve players, right? Technically, tactically. Do you think he did enough when, with different opponents? I know there were times with we were saying, why is he waiting so long to, react to what the system and opposition managers thrown at him? Do you think that, you saw that change? I already said that we can definitely give him kudos for his man management. The fact that we got to see Reece James so much, he definitely managed Lavia's minutes well as well. And I expect that that's an aspect of his management style that we'll see only get better. But on these other points, I mean, where do you stand with that, and what do you think he's gonna do going forward?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for giving me the chance to rein all the positivity back in because there are definitely still areas for improvement from his side. Uh, in terms of the tactics, I mean, he really needs, honestly, he needs to rework his entire approach to defending. We need to come up with a mid-block solution that we can implement during games where we are 1-0 up, but we don't want to invite so much pressure that we do when we go into that low block. And maybe he wants to look at a different pressing shape because we've been pressing out of this 4-4-2, and it's way too easy to pass through our midfield, and we look very exposed when the opponents switch the ball from one flank to the other or cross the ball from one side to the other. I've mentioned this many times. So I think as an attacking coach, he's doing a good job in terms of training these guys to find solutions and giving them the freedom to do so within his predefined system, right? I don't think we have reached that same level or we're anywhere close to that same level in defense. The other kind of area that requires improvement from Maresca's side, I think, is going to be the external management, particularly as expectations will shoot through the roof now that we've won a trophy and we're in the Champions League, right? The next season, the bare minimum will be to qualify for the Champions League. It will be to go to it may be to go to the round of 16 proper of the Champions League. You're absolutely right. We should definitely be doing better in the trophies next year, especially considering the squad that we're looking at potentially next year. So he will need to manage upwards and outwards a lot better than what he did this season. I think calling out the fans at certain points in the season, I know what he was trying to do. He was trying to get a reaction, but I don't think he did it in the right way or at the right time. I'm not sure if a manager really has that that um, ability really to affect the fans and the way they interact at matches with the players. I mean, look at somebody with like Pep Guardiola. I don't think he's been that effective, right? The outcome hasn't really changed when he's called the fans out, ultimately in the long term, right? And he's got a lot of credit in the bank at Man City. So yeah, it's a couple of main things that I would say he really needs to focus and improve on. But the overall trajectory of him as a manager is up. As for the squad, I would say, yeah, it's more of a mixed bag, like we've already pointed out. One one other thing I thought would be pretty fun to do was, we've talked a lot about the changes we're expecting in the squad, right? Or the gaps that require filling, and some areas need like, just a little bit of maintenance, right? What do you think our first 11 looks like at the start of next season?
Why did I know you were going to ask me that? Wow, that's a very loaded question considering we have what still the better part of what till September for the transfer window, and there's a lot of uncertainty. But okay, if I had to, you know, venture a guess based on where we are today, I think we don't make this keeper signing, so it's Petrovic in goal. Um, it's Reece James, Colwell, Cucurella for sure, and I want to say maybe we start with Tosin. Okay. Caicedo, Enzo for sure. And then the likes of so Madueke, Palmer, and I have a feeling Gittins is gonna come in. So Gittins starts at left wing and Delap by that time will have played in the Club World Cup as well. So Delap starts up front. I think that's what it looks like. What about you?
It's
Where do you
I
see
guess
this
it's
going?
funny. I thought this was going to be fun, but the only difference between your squad and mine is I think Jackson is a shoe at striker, but the goalkeeper, I actually do think we end up with Mike Maignan. But I guess this is more of a prediction of rather than what we would want to see or want to happen. But yeah, I would pretty much predict the exact same lineup except for the goalkeeper.
You said Jackson up front as well?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the difference is our front and back basically. Either end of the pitch, we have differences. If I mean, I see the value in bringing in a keeper. It's don't get me wrong, but I feel like the reason I don't think it makes sense to go through with this is we're already in a place where we have a lot of players to offload, and you've said this so many times, right? Like, how are you going to offload a player when there's no market, right? You're creating a condition where you're setting yourself up for failure by introducing one more player into the mix, in terms of the outgoings, where you don't necessarily need to. You do have um, sufficient, quality in the squad. And then the flip side is, if we there is actually a release clause in Petrovic's improved contract that is being, mentioned recently, he might be the one to go. And then Jorgensen or Sanchez, one of them goes out on loan, likely a Jorgensen if this was the scenario. So you might not really have that much of a problem. But I just feel like compounding the issue by throwing in one more player, it's not something that we should be doing. That's my rationale for that.
Whilst I 110% agree with you, my friend, all I have to say in response to that is that's never stopped us before. Just before we sign off, what was your best moment of the season?
Best moment of the season. Oh, I don't actually have a best moment of the season, do I? Um, okay, best moment just because it's never been done. Palmer scoring 4 goals in the first half. Because I don't know if you know, but when they were doing the player shoots before, like when the season, like preseason, the players have all those promo shoots, right? And where like what they're doing for goals, they asked Palmer to do like one finger, like show 1, 2, 3 on his hands, like if he was scoring a hat trick. And Palmer literally goes, "Well, what if I score 4?" And he then did a fourth finger, and they got to actually use that. So I think that's got to be like best, just because it's a sheer moment of individual class. There are obviously, like I said, a lot of highs, just even recently being able to actually lift the trophy and get over the line with the last 5 games. Definitely good points, but I think that Palmer moment got to be it for me. What about you?
Well, you kind of mentioned it. I think the top feeling was definitely Reece James, seeing Reece James lift that trophy. Him coming on for the second half of that final. It's just like it's a reassuring moment, right? Like you're bringing on your club captain and somebody who's just overall very composed, even though you're 1-0 down in a final. Um, yeah, in terms of maybe one of the funniest moments this season was when Maresca finally caved in and played Jorgensen in a Premier League match, and then we all realized that yeah, maybe he was right all along. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
We definitely had some high highs, and we definitely had some medium lows. I wouldn't say we were rock bottom. We saw that a couple of seasons ago. And long may this trend continue, you know. Hopefully this team finds some consistency next season. And next season, like you said, is really not that far away. So yeah, anything else to add? Any more moments or any more like learning lessons from this season?
Just in terms of, I mean, it's crazy to think that we first thought about this podcast literally with less than 1 week to go to the start of last season. So it's kind of cool that we're here and this first season's done. And I've had fun, man. So I'm not gonna bring more feels than that. It's been a fun time, and yeah, we'll probably be back with another episode before the next season starts for sure. And I'm definitely gonna be more active on Twitter and Reddit. So you should give us a follow at We Burn Brew Pod on X, and definitely, rate this podcast and share it with more Chelsea fans on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. But that's just the housekeeping bit to add from you. Any last words from you?
Yeah, just want to thank everybody for listening. And you know, we're only going to get better. We are like Maresca and the rest of the team, very new to this, but yeah, like you said, it's been a lot of fun. So with that, we bring the 24-25 season to a close. Again, thanks for everybody who listened along the way, and we will catch you again very shortly for the start of the new season with a Club World Cup review. Up the Blues.